This is in response to Billy's Talking Points memo from Monday, April 20th, 2015, Income Equality in America. Now, Billy starts out, and I really must say that Billy is so off the wall on this, I can't believe it, but I shouldn't. That's just the way it is. So Billy starts off in terms of blaming Hillary right from the beginning, indicating that she's going to have a vexing problem. And of course, there's a quote there from Hillary who says that we need to do something in America about the fact that CEOs make 300 times as much as that of the average worker. So I just take an example. So if you have an average worker who's making $10 an hour, that means they're making $400 a week. And if you have a CEO making 300 times that, which means they're making $3,000 an hour, that means they're making $120,000 a week based on, that seems like an astronomical amount of money. It takes most of us years to make that kind of money. But the thing is, you make all this money, shouldn't you pay something in taxes? And of course, Billy wants to talk about all the problems that rich people have in terms of taxes. As I like to say, he's expressing excessive hyperbole, or as I like to use the term, hyperpole, where there are now going to be $3 trillion in taxes that we're going to pay to the United States government. Well, hey, the government's got to run. They need money, okay? This is the best country in the world to live in. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else, and I'm more than happy to pay my fair share to keep that going as it is. I hope that we can get more Democrats in so that we can have a more equitable system, and that there can be greater opportunities for income growth in the United States, which I do not see right now from the Republicans, because I do not believe that they really want Obama to succeed or the country to succeed. They only want themselves to succeed. But Billy wants to put in a tremendous amount of excessive exaggeration. I won't call it exaggeration, but he has to point out these things to make it look like, oh, it's so bad that you make money in America, and look at all the taxes that you have to pay. In terms of, if you make over $400,000, then you have to pay 40%. Of course, there's lots of deductions. Billy has plenty of deductions. Billy makes about $10 million a year. He's got plenty of deductions. Maybe his first home is a deduction in terms of the mortgage interest rate. Maybe his second home is a deduction in terms of the mortgage interest rates. And he goes back and forth between personal and business, so I'm not really sure all the time what he's talking about. Of course, business taxes are listed as the highest in the world, but at the same time, there are a tremendous amount of deductions, and we know, I believe, that U.S. corporations are holding a couple $1 trillion overseas because they don't want to bring it back to the United States because they don't want to pay the tax on it. And we allowed them to do that in the Bush administration, and they said that they were going to do basically to invest in America. And what did they do? They rebought their own stock to increase the value of their stock and increase their own their own income. And Billy wants to complain about capital gains. The capital gains tax is up. But of course, capital gains should be taxed at the same level as income, or should be closer to the same level of income as I think it should be closer to the level of income that we pay in terms of income taxes. And of course, then he basically whines about the rich people, and then he says the poor people don't have it so bad because they only pay 2.7% in federal income taxes. Of course, the amount of wealth and disparity of wealth is so great that these people don't have to pay that much taxes because they just don't earn anything. If they earn more, if we help educate them more, if we help feed the poor people so that they could get a better education, and so that if we invest in jobs, we continue to invest in the economy, then, many of these people might be moving up and be able to pay a little bit more in taxes. But you see, Billy wants to say, oh, poor people don't have it so bad, And of course, he says that, oh, there's this one guy named, what's his name? Alex Green, and says that basically, if you tax people, there's not going to be any job creation. Of course, we know, it has been proven time and time again that when we invest money in America, that when we pay our fair shares of taxes, and the government uses that money to do things that we wouldn't, that private industry will not do. Roads, infrastructure, tunnels, bridges, the electrical grid system, all of that transportation, and all of these investments that we have, those things pay back big time as we move along. Many things were invented when we decided to go to the moon, and NASA drove technology fast forward. And a lot of those things we were able to use in our own personal lives, much more so because the technology that drove us to go to the moon gave us these types of things. But Billy doesn't want to do that, Now he's basically indicating small business people don't want to hire. If you have a small business and you're making more money, you have a contract to make more money, you have to hire more people. If you're a small business and you know that if you hire one other person, you're going to make enough to pay that person and to get a profit for yourself, it doesn't make any difference how much money in taxes you're paying. You're going to bring another person on. That's just stupid what Billy's saying. Really, and of course he wants to blame the government. It's a possibility that we take the taxes are so much that's going to crash the economy. What's crashing the economy is investment by big banks, hedge funds, etc., that just stink, and that we've had to bail them out. That's what it is. Of course, he wants to go back there at the end and blame Hillary for the whole thing, indicating that private industry needs to expand. The only way private industry can expand is if we get the government off our back. So, excessive amount of hyperbole. Now, don't necessarily consider myself that smart. Flunked out of college twice. I don't make $10 million a year like Billy. Did a quick check. We had bank runs in 1813, had bank runs in 1819, 1837, 1873, 1893, bank runs in 1907, 1929. So there was no federal government, monitoring the banking system during those times. I believe the Federal Reserve did start in 1913, and of course we had a tremendous Great Depression in 1929 because of excessive poor investment by the investment industry, and that's why we had the Glass-Steagall Act. But the point is, when Billy says you need to cut the taxation down, you need to get the government off our backs, we have a long history of bank runs, of panics, etc., that caused people to lose everything back then. And remember, from the time the Glass-Steagall Act came in 1933, almost to the mid-'80s, after they cut out the difference, condensed the difference between savings and loans and banks, and that scoundrel, that land thief, that robber baron, his name was Keating, for some banks or some savings and loan down in Arizona, and of course McCain tried to bail him out. He had a big, we had a pretty stable banking system for about 40 years, and we had the greatest growth in the United States. We had the greatest middle class in the United States when that came along. And of course, Billy wants to trash it all and to go back to the way it was. Thanks, Billy. Don't ever believe that stinking guy again.